Hello and welcome. I'm Sandy Chi, and here's what happened this week. July 15 marks a symbolic day in Taiwan's democratic history. The lifting of martial law in 1987 was one of the key events that set the stage for its transition from dictatorship to democracy. 38 years later, the country is preparing for another unprecedented political moment, as a mass recall vote in late July could see up to 24 lawmakers lose their seats. Izzy Wells looks at how we got here.
So this is my VIP room.
Fred Chin spent a year and a half in this cell for a crime he didn't commit. In 1971, aged just 21, he was a Malaysian student in Taiwan when he became accused of bombing a US government office. He would go on to spend 12 years in prison, detained and tortured first here at the Jingmei Detention Center in New Taipei, then in Taiwan's notorious jail for political prisoners on Green Island. To this day, he still doesn't know why he was singled out.
Sometimes I will stand here and look out through the window. I try to find some explanation why I was in this room.
Chin was just one of many people targeted by the nationalist Kuomintang government led by Chiang Kai-shek, which had taken over Taiwan at the end of World War II in 1945. Martial law was declared in 1949, and it would not be lifted for nearly 40 years. It remains a dark period of repression in Taiwan's history, often referred to as the White Terror, where as many as 200,000 people were imprisoned. Martial law was finally lifted on July 15, 1987.
It was a very brutal, authoritarian form of martial law. Many thousands of dissidents were arrested, and many were killed. And so the symbolic end of that moment, even though there were many events that led up to it, represented a really important step in Taiwan's democratization. Probably the single most important symbolic moment.
But while that date was important, Chin says it wasn't until 5 years later, in 1992, when further legal reforms were made, that political prisoners like himself were truly free to speak out without fear of repercussions, and that the White Terror was officially over. Although the memories still haunt him, Chin continues to lead tours through the former detention center where he was once held, now a memorial park. Etched into the walls here, over 12,000 names of confirmed victims of political persecution, including his own. For Chin, revisiting these painful times is essential to safeguarding Taiwan's hard-won democracy.
If you don't see the importance of remembering the past, if you just enjoy the democracy and freedom, if you don't pay attention to preserve it, then the tragedies in the past could possibly happen and reoccur in any time in the future.
2025 marks 38 years since the end of 38 years of martial law. Taiwan has been free of military rule for as long as it's spent under it. And in the years since, Taiwan has checked off the milestones of its democratic development: the legalization of other political parties, like the now ruling Democratic Progressive Party, the first direct presidential election, the first peaceful transfer of political power, all driven by social activism in opposition to single-party authoritarian rule. In today's Taiwan, officials are freely elected and may be freely removed if voters are unhappy with them, as can be seen in the current mass recall movement, which is targeting the seats of dozens of lawmakers.
Obviously, with the end of martial law and the constitutional reform in the early 1990s and all of the political the changes and institutional changes that were enabled by the end of martial law, that's created the political conditions where recalls can happen. I think you can understand the current movement in the long history of social movement activism. So it is part of that long history, and clearly the DPP has tried to locate it within that history.
Today's Kuomintang, now a Democratic Party and currently in the opposition, sees things differently. It says it's now being persecuted, as all 26 legislators up for recall so far this summer are from the KMT. It's a reminder that the traumatic legacy of martial law still echoes across Taiwan's political landscape. What is certain is that without the country's hard-won freedoms and the resilience of survivors like Fred Chin, the right of Taiwanese people to choose and recall their leaders and representatives wouldn't be part of today's democratic reality. Howard Chang, Alex Chen, Energy World for TaiwanPlus.
The Environment Ministry says it's got 12 investors for its billion US$ plan to hit Taiwan's environmental targets.
我们从过去的管制者也能够进到辅导跟综合管理这一方面所以特别呢跟国发基金这边申请了100亿的绿色成长基金那么希望未来能够透过我们在座的12位搭配投资人一起来投资。
The investors will put money into an action plan to reach Taiwan's net zero goals by 2050. The Environment Ministry has also already earmarked $3.4 billion from the National Development Fund to kickstart the plan. The goal is to build a domestic green startup ecosystem in Taiwan over the next decade. The 2025 World University Games has kicked off in Germany, with athletes from around the world aiming to take home glory, including Taiwan's top student fencers. I caught up with them in training before the Games. Taiwan's fencing team is aiming to bring home the country's first medal in the sport at the 2025 World University Games in Germany this summer. The competition is an important multi-sports event for university athletes around the world. This year, a total of 9 fencers are representing Taiwan under the name Chinese Taipei.
应该说，我们男子锐剑，我们这次派出的就是4个代表，对，然后他们分别是打个人赛跟团体赛。 然后接下来我们还会有男子盾剑，还有女子锐剑。
Among the male fencers is Chen Yitong, who competed in Paris last summer. He was Taiwan's first male Olympic fencer in 36 years. He says the team has been training hard.
我觉得我们训练就很全方面，可是就是有比较 focus 在我们的反应跟敏捷，然后可能还要在场上对打的节奏。
The spotlight is also on the only female epee fencer on the team, Mia Wu, who began fencing at the age of 11. She is representing Chinese Taipei for the first time at this year's Games.
I'm really proud of how hard I worked for this University Games, and I'm super excited to compete, and I hope everything goes well. I would love to be top 4 at least to get that medal, but I really want to try my best and just show how hard I trained and my abilities and capabilities.
With the Games set to kick off this Wednesday, Taiwan's top fencers are ready to fight their way to glory and secure their spot on the podium. Chrisma and Sanichi for TaiwanPlus. Artists from Taiwan will soon be off to Osaka, Japan for an event aimed at showing the country's resilience and sharing its culture. Taiwan is ready to showcase its talents and culture on the world stage at We Taiwan, an event held alongside Expo 2025, a world fair in Osaka. The event comes after the country's success last year at the Cultural Olympiad in Paris, which attracted hundreds of thousands of visitors. And this time, We Taiwan's organizers have adopted the motto of supporting the future, the island of miracles. That highlights Taiwan's social resilience as a strong democracy, along with the country's role in shaping the technology of a rapidly changing world. It also responds to the theme of Expo 2025, designing future society for our lives.
我觉得最重要，其实呼应这样子的主题，创造未来，还是回到人，不管科技怎么发展，不管怎么样子的媒体载体怎么演进，最后还是回到人跟人之间的关怀，人跟人之间的主题。
We Taiwan will kick off on August 2nd and run through August 20th. With around 500 contributing artists delivering everything from tech-infused dance performances to VR showcases, films and literature. There will also be exhibitions and markets held at several venues across Osaka.
所以我们这一次就把属于台湾这种多元、多彩、混合、韧性的这样子的文化概念带进来，那希望透过这个方式也鼓舞这个世界，鼓起勇气向着未来前进。
Besides We Taiwan, A media event held on Monday also revealed another surprise.
我们在8月26到28号会能够进到这个正式的大阪世博的那个广场做3天的表演啊，那这个东西实在是一个不太容易的，我想非常谢谢我们准备去表演的这个团队。
9 groups of performers will take the stage to express the Taiwanese people's gratitude toward heaven, earth, and spirit, as well as their deep love for life. Now, with preparations in full swing, Taiwan is ready to showcase its culture in Osaka this summer. Clang Wong and Sanny Chi in Taipei for TaiwanPlus. A weaving workshop in eastern Taiwan is bringing historic ethnic patterns back to life, and with these motifs, a way of life that's disappeared. John Van Triest has the story.
In the small township of Fonglin, near Taiwan's east coast, people are reclaiming a century-old heritage of making cloth by hand. Spurring the movement is Li Meiling, a lover of textiles and weaving. At first, Li's interest was in the rich, living traditions of indigenous handicrafts native to this part of Taiwan. But gradually, she started asking herself whether her own ancestors, the Hakka people who migrated here later on, had their own weaving traditions. What would her own great-grandparents have worn? Over a decade of research on historic garments later, she now has a good idea.
这一件就很特别，它是清朝末年的，然后它的是我们目前采集到花纹最漂亮、最繁复，所以它一串上面就会有3个以上的图文，然后非常的美丽。
Hakka weaving, as she's found out, tends to be subtle and plain, with patterns mostly relegated to the edges of clothes. With survival most people's prime concern, only the wealthy could splurge on fancier items like these. But what decoration there is elegant, restrained, and painstaking. This 20-centimeter strip of decoration took 3 days to weave. And it isn't simple. It's been so long since people wove these motifs by hand that Li and her team have had to use an app to help analyze how it would have been done. Meanwhile, they've also had to get familiar with a range of plant dyes, how to make them, and how to get it so the thread takes the right shade. These days, Li and partners have a community workshop that teaches Hakka weaving, especially to people in retirement. Though the average age of the learners here is around 80, even they don't remember a time when this kind of clothing was commonplace. But they long wanted to do more to document and promote the style. And now they have. Since 2020, Li's been collecting Hakka patterns for decorating women's clothing. And she has now put them together into a book, with other tidbits of Hakka culture and language mixed in. The 12 types of historic motifs featured in the book include floral, bird, nature, and even text-based designs, all recreated with modern tools.
其实最想要记录的是我们当时候怎么从学织布到寻找自己的客家文化，然后再从100多年前的客家传统服饰上面采到我们以前客家织女的图文这样子。其实它里面也牵涉到我们花东的客家移民啊文化故事。
Local Hakka weavers have showcased the craft in London with a special appearance at the 2023 London Craft Week. And back in the community, too, they have plans to bring back not just weaving, but more a way of life by reintroducing the cotton plants used to make the thread and more.
第一个社区地图专门弄成一个类似观光景点这样，示范走，又走得走一些成品，贩售怎么来他们走得安尼慢慢的本大家在地让地讲，有两种按这样的东西。
The aim is a full chain of education and experience so that this renewed form of weaving once again becomes a part of this community's everyday life. Devin Tsai and John Van Triest for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Here's What Happened. Finally today, we leave you with images of Taiwanese students performing traditional dragon and lion dancing at the largest annual folk dance festival in the Netherlands. I'm Sanny Chi. Take care and see you next time.